most of the men that I work with can tell you everything there is to know about their football team, their fantasy football team, soccer, basketball, baseball, different kinds of bourbon in the world, where they come from, what kind of barrels that they're aged in, and what happens when Kirk Cousins plays at night versus at 1 o'clock kickoffs. But if you ask them about their apolipoprotein B or their homocysteine or even what their LDL numbers mean, they have absolutely no clue what you're talking about and generally don't care. That's the problem. Your fantasy roster probably won't kill you, might embarrass you when you have to do the chicken dance in Grand Central Station until, someone laughs at you or something. But your high levels of apolipoprotein B, there's a potential that could kill you someday. And it's something that you should know. I'm not saying that to be hyperbolic, but I'm being honest. Somewhere after the age of 30, the game changes for the general majority of men that I see. Back when they were in high school and college, they were able to exercise and get away with a bunch of drinking and all of this stuff. And it really didn't terribly impact what they were able to do. They got up, they generally looked good in the mirror, everything was okay. But as they get into the workplace and they get married or have kids, or they just stop taking care of themselves, generally speaking, everything starts to change and their margin for error starts to shrink. And that standard physical panel that your doctor runs, usually once a year, which isn't enough, and you get it back with a smiley face that says, hey, you're doing great. Some things are a little high, low, but work out more and, maybe lose some weight. And that 10-minute conversation is done. However, that's not giving you the picture you need to have success long-term over the next 40, 50, 60, 70, 80 years, whatever it is that you're still on this earth. And in this video, I'm going to break down the 12 extra biomarkers, extra numbers that you should know, that every man should know beyond a standard blood panel. All of them matter, and most of them you're probably going to specifically have to ask for from your doctor. So I want you to consider this as an overview. Each one of these numbers is going to get its own deeper dive video. So giving you 30 seconds really isn't going to do that. Subscribe to the channel so that you get all of the updates as that happens, so you're not missing out on individual important aspects of each of these markers. So let's get into it. Here's the reality that we are dealing with. Heart disease, type 2 diabetes, high cholesterol, high blood pressure. These are showing up a lot earlier than they used to in modern men. Example, between 1990 and 2021, the incidence of type 2 diabetes in young adults has nearly doubled, which is basically saying that guys who are in their 30s are getting things that normally wouldn't be seen until men were in their 50s or 60s. Obesity is really the big primary driver of this. We're just less healthy than we used to be. And obesity, considering that 3/4 of the American male population is overweight or obese, is a big contributing factor to that. Understand that this is not I'll worry about it when I'm older. Don't worry about that. I'll start taking care of myself next week, or it's almost the new year, so I'll get onto my New Year's resolution train and it'll all be okay. This is not that conversation. This is it's time to get this under control right now, because the faster I do that, the less likely the boogeyman is going to come for me later on down the road. And this takes us to your blood panel. The standard annual physical that your doctor runs typically include things like your fasting glucose and a metabolic panel, which is looking at your kidney and liver function, a lipid panel with HDL, LDL, your triglycerides, your total cholesterol, and a complete blood count. So your red blood cells, white blood cells, etc. That panel is great. And all of you should be getting it done twice a year. A lot of people say once. I'm on the twice a year train. It catches overt disease, anemia, diabetes, kidney failure, elevated cholesterol numbers or lipid panel numbers, but it's missing some other really important pieces that we should know about if we're really trying to take care of our health. There's particle level cardiovascular risks, there's genetic markers, there's inflammatory markers, there's the hormonal picture. And those are all things that get missed in that standard panel. Here's the good news. Most of those markers that I'm about to walk you through are cheap. You generally can get them covered by insurance as long as your doctor orders them. All of them are just a matter of asking. In the event that your doctor won't order them, or you just want to bypass that because you can't even get in to see your doctor because of the world we live in, you can go to a lot of the direct-to-consumer places like Function or Whoop or Merrick Health or LabCorp, whatever one you use, and they are awesome. Spend the money and get it done. In the event that insurance won't cover it, the best couple $100s you're going to spend is on getting your blood work done. Now, all you really have to know is what to ask for. That's what this video is for. Now, just to clarify, these are not numbers that you get done independently or that you get done in lieu of your normal blood panel. All of you should be getting a regular blood panel twice a year. These are 12 extra things I want you looking at. So let's start with your cardiovascular panel. So number one on our list is going to address kind of the big elephant that's killing men the most. Heart disease is the number one killer of men in the United States. And the markers that predict it are really never on a standard panel, starting with number one, apolipoprotein B. This is the single best blood marker for cardiovascular risk. To understand why, you need to have an understanding of what LDL and VLDL actually are. So LDL just means low density lipoprotein. It's the particle that carries cholesterol from your liver out to your tissues. Too much of that and it starts burrowing into your arterial walls, and that's what can build up plaque and lead to heart attacks, strokes, etc. That's why LDL gets called bad cholesterol. Very low density lipoprotein, or VLDL, is a related particle that carries triglycerides, which are floating in your blood after a meal. VLDL eventually gets converted into LDL, so they're in the same family of potentially artery damaging particles. And this is why ApoB matters. Every single one of those particles, be it LDL, VLDL, and LPA, which we'll get to in a second, carries exactly one ApoB molecule on its surface. So when you measure ApoB, you're getting a direct count of how many potentially artery damaging particles are actually in your blood. That's a far more precise picture of cardiovascular risk than just measuring cholesterol inside those particles alone, which is what your standard LDL test is doing. In terms of numbers, the National Lipid Association's targets are under 90 milligrams per deciliter for an intermediate risk, under 70 for high risk, and under 60 for people that are at very high risk. For a healthy man who's just trying to optimize his blood work, you should be under 80. If yours is over 90, we need to have a conversation with your doctor and also with coaches, trainers, etc. about lifestyle changes. And depending on the rest of your risk picture, this is where medications actually might make some sense. Number two, lipoprotein A, or Lp(a). This is a genetic cardiovascular marker, and it's a special kind of LDL particle that you're either born with or a lot of us aren't. I am one of those people that happens to be born with it. I'm one of the lucky 1 in 5. Sweet. Unlike your regular LDL, you cannot change Lp(a) with diet and exercise. Damn genetics. It's set by your genes and it stays for life. And that's why, generally speaking, the National Lipid Association says to get this measured once in your lifetime, and anything above 50 milligrams per deciliter is considered high. If you have a family history of early heart attack, this test is non-negotiable, and for all men that I work with, I just have them get it done so that we know. There are some medications in phase 2, maybe even phase 3 trials at this point that are aimed at Lp(a), but it's a number that we should know because it changes how we look at things like your LDL and your ApoB, because if you have Lp(a) in the presence of those things, we really need to make some changes to your lifestyle and get those other numbers where they should be. Now, moving on. Number 3, hs-CRP, or high sensitivity C-reactive protein. Think of this as an inflammation smoke detector, if you will. It's a protein that your liver produces when there's inflammation happening anywhere in the body. Below 1 is low cardiovascular risk. 1 to 3 is moderate, and above 3 is high. We need to get some stuff in order here. It goes up with visceral fat, smoking, poor sleep, gum disease, chronic stress. But the great news is that hs-CRP is one of the most responsive lifestyle markers. So if you start losing some fat and training and sleeping better and cutting down on alcohol, floss a little bit, that number is going to move down, and that is important. Taking us to number 4, homocysteine. This is an amino acid that your body produces when it breaks down protein. Above 15 is considered elevated, and it's associated with heart disease and stroke and cognitive decline. Worth knowing. But a quick, honest piece. Major randomized controlled trials showed that lowering homocysteine with B vitamin supplements didn't really reduce cardiovascular events. The marker is real, but the pill approach doesn't seem to completely work. I'm not saying that it's useless, and maybe you shouldn't be on some methylated vitamins, but you really should be focusing on fixing the underlying lifestyle issues and then seeing what those numbers look like after that. Moving on to metabolic health. Number 5, fasting glucose and HbA1c. These are usually on your standard panel. Fasting glucose is your blood sugar first thing in the morning before you've eaten anything. Under 100 is normal, 100 to 125 is pre-diabetic, and that's something that we need to take into account. HbA1c is actually your 3-month average blood sugar. And so it captures kind of the bigger picture than just a single fasting can, because that can adjust a little bit based on time and what you ate the night before, etc. Under 5.7% for your HbA1c is considered normal. 5.7 to 6.4 is pre-diabetic, and you really should be focusing on under 90 for your glucose and your HbA1c under 5.4. Again, that should be on your regular panel, but I like to point it out because for some reason people just don't look at it and think it's of any real worth. Anyways, number 6, fasting insulin. This is something people really don't look at. This is the hormone that your pancreas puts out to move sugar out of your blood and into your cells. It's not on the standard panel, and honestly, the evidence base is a little bit weaker than glucose or HbA1c. That is the golden goose. Fasting insulin is below that, down the ladder. But it's worth running because it can sometimes catch insulin resistance earlier. Fasting insulin can start creeping up potentially years before your blood sugar actually drifts. Under 6 is generally considered optimal. Above 10 is considered a red flag. Interpret these cautiously because day-to-day variance can be really high, but it's worth looking at. If you're seeing consistently elevated fasting insulin with normal glucose, you may be getting an early warning sign that most standard panels would probably miss. Moving on to number 7, uric acid. This is a waste product that your body creates when it breaks down what we call purines. And these are compounds found in certain foods and drinks, especially organ meats, alcohol, and high fructose sugar. Most men have never had this run outside of what we call a gout workup, right? The King's disease. But uric acid is actually a silent driver of a lot of cardiometabolic disease. It inhibits nitric oxide production, drives insulin resistance, and independently can predict cardiovascular events, all at levels below the gout threshold. Your standard reference ranges are up to 7 milligrams per deciliter for men is considered normal. Optimal is really considered under 5.5. If yours is elevated, it's a red flag that your metabolic health is under stress before you feel it, and it needs to be addressed. Again, beautifully, usually by lifestyle change. Moving on to the hormonal panel. This is where most men are really in the dark, and they might get 1 or 2 of these numbers, but they really don't understand what they mean. Number 8, total testosterone. This is the total amount of testosterone that's circulating in your blood, both considered bound and unbound, which I'll describe in a second. The CDC has what we call the harmonized reference range, which is between 264 to 916 nanograms per deciliter. Anywhere in that range is considered normal, but that's an enormous range. So there could be a guy that has 300 nanograms per deciliter of testosterone total and feel normal, but normal depends on things like your androgen receptor sensitivity, which is genetic in nature, and if they're having symptoms or not having symptoms. So generally, optimal for most men is 500 to 800 nanograms per deciliter. But again, you could be totally fine if you're below that, and you could be in trouble if you are in that range. It just depends on a few different things. If you are below 300 nanograms per deciliter with symptoms, that's what we would consider having low T. Whether or not that means that like TRT or testosterone replacement therapy is right for you is a conversation for you and your doctor, and that's its own video series. But just understand that your levels should be probably between 500 and 800, but if they're anywhere in that range and you feel great and are doing okay, it's probably nothing that you need to be overly concerned with. Number 9, free testosterone. So this is the small fraction of your testosterone that does all the good stuff in your body. It's what we call unbound testosterone. It's free to enter your cells and do its beautiful work. About 1 to 3% of your total testosterone is unbound and biologically active. If your total T is decent, but your free testosterone is low, you're probably going to feel the symptoms of low T no matter what. The reference ranges can vary by lab, but roughly speaking, adult men, it's about 15 picograms per milliliter or higher. Again, as long as you feel good, you're not having signs of low T and your total T isn't in the tank, we just want to keep an eye on your free testosterone because it just gives us our numbers that we need. But you might have normal testosterone total, but your free is low, and that's creating a problem. Number 10, SHBG. This is what we call sex hormone binding globulin. This is a protein in your blood that grabs testosterone and it holds it hostage. It keeps it from being available. If you have excess or high SHBG, it means that you're going to have less available testosterone or less available free testosterone that is usable by your body. Generally speaking, if your SHBG is really low, we're looking at things like metabolic problems, which could be from a host of things, but just understand that usually we're worried about it when it gets high. Normal ranges are somewhere between 10 and 57 nanomoles per liter. And again, this is why measuring total T alone is misleading. You've got to see that trio: total T, free T, and SHBG. Number 11, testosterone's sister, if you will, estradiol. Estrogen. This is the primary form of estrogen. And yes, men need estrogen. So optimal is somewhere between 20 to 30 picograms per milliliter. If you have too little estrogen, often from oversuppression on testosterone replacement therapy or extreme leanness, this is going to cause low libido, joint pain, bone loss, mood problems, all the above. Usually we're concerned when it's too high. And this is often driven by body fat, because what happens when you have body fat is testosterone is converted into estrogen. And this results in things like fatigue and testosterone suppression, gynecomastia, which is man boobs, low libido, all of the above. So you do need to know your estrogen numbers. Number 12, PSA. A lot of men have heard of this, but they really understand what we're talking about. This is prostate-specific antigen. So this is a protein produced by your prostate that shows up in your blood. It's the standard prostate cancer screening test. Standard cutoff is about 4 nanograms per milliliter, but there are age-specific ranges that are more useful. For men in their 40s, under 2.5 is ideal, 50s under 3.5, 60s under 4.5. A single elevated PSA test does not mean that you have cancer. Things like infection, or if you had sweet love to your wife in the last couple of days, or hard exercise, even having a prostate exam can push it up. But the trend across time matters. So we want to get a baseline in our 30s and 40s so that we have something to compare it against later on. Before we leave the hormonal panel, there are 2 more markers worth pulling on that specifically impact your testosterone. Vitamin D. Make sure you ask for 25 hydroxyvitamin D. That's the storage form that your doctor should measure. Roughly a third of American adults are deficient, and levels are lower in men who spend most of their time indoors, or they live in northern latitudes, or they're overweight. Again, 75% of the US male population. We consider above 30 nanograms per milliliter to be sufficient. Optimal is 40 to 60. And remember that vitamin D functions kind of like a hormone in your body, and low levels are associated with lower testosterone, weaker bones, worse mood, impaired immune function, etc. And it's one of the easiest and cheapest deficiencies to correct. Now, if you are not deficient in it, you don't need to be supplementing with it. But if you are deficient, that's when we need to actually start getting some supplements, which is the exact same thing as the next marker, which is zinc. It is a critical mineral for testosterone production and immune function for that matter. Deficiency is pretty common in men who don't eat a whole lot of red meat or shellfish, or, who are training a lot or in really hot climates and they sweat it out. Standard, reference ranges are about 60 to 120 micrograms per deciliter. Below 70 is where you're going to start seeing some testosterone impact. Supplement it if it's low, but once it gets to normal, you don't have to keep over supplementing it. Ideally with zinc and even with vitamin D, the goal is to get them to normal levels, not to get them to super physiologic levels. That's actually of no use. Okay. These are generally on a standard panel, by the way, but just double check and make sure. Here is how you can actually get all of this done. Number 1, take this list to your next physical. Most primary care doctors are going to run these if you ask. You want ApoB, Lp(a), hs-CRP, homocysteine, uric acid. Make sure fasting insulin's on there, total T, free T, SHBG, estradiol, PSA, vitamin D, and zinc. That's what you're adding to whatever the standard panel is that they already run. And let me tell you something, there's like a billion other markers that you can get done now through some of these other corporations, such as if your doctor won't order it, which is our second point, go to Function Health or Whoop Labs or LabCorp on Demand and just pay the few $100s to get all this done. This isn't a quarter that you want to cut. Get your labs done twice a year, call it a day, which is number 3. Run your labs twice a year for most markers. Yes, Lp(a) you could do once in your lifetime, but I think that realistically you should just keep an eye on it across time, and we may have some things in the future that can impact that anyways. Number 4, track the trends, not just the snapshot. A single number is a data point. If it's high or low, it's okay. It's something that we can use. It's information. What we want to see is over a couple of years or over a year, are those numbers improving? Are we seeing LDL come down? Are we seeing ApoB come down? Is your hs-CRP improving, etc.? The trend is always going to beat the snapshot. Number 5, do something with the information. Too many men that I work with get their blood work back and they do absolutely nothing to change it. Numbers you don't act on are just noise. If you have elevated hs-CRP or higher homocysteine or your testosterone is low, we have to start addressing your lifestyle. If you need to lose weight, we've got to start getting some visceral fat off of you. You need to start training, getting your cardiovascular health in check. You need to start eating better. Most of these issues, when people go from being obese to not obese, or they go to being normal weight or leaner, tend to disappear. Testosterone specifically, by the way. High blood pressure specifically. If you can get to a healthy body weight, start training, improving your cardiovascular health and your overall strength, a lot of this stuff kind of goes away. Anyways, your blood work isn't optional. You have to be serious about taking care of yourself if you want to enjoy life and be capable and be able to love on your family and protect your children and all of those things. You have to be around to do that. Knowing a full panel is only going to help you. 2 times a year, get it done. Go check out the other videos for a deeper dive on each one of them. And that's about it. Full breakdown on all of this inside of The Heroic Man. Go get that if you haven't gotten it yet. And that's all. See ya.